The presentation will be led today by Roxanne Emmerich, founder and chair of the Institute for Extraordinary Banking and CEO of the Emmerich Group. One client CEO described her as a one-woman economic recovery program during the last recession. And she's committed to making sure every bank on this line not only survives what's ahead, but pulls ahead so that their bank seizes all the best opportunities. Well, it's now 1 o'clock Central Time, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the Worst Case Scenario Bank Survival Strategy webinar. Roxanne, take it away.
Hi, everyone. It's Roxanne Emmerich, and we are in some unprecedented times, and it's also a time of great opportunity. I'm taking this very seriously, and I want you to know that during the last recession, we had a lot of banks that had assured me that the only reason they got through this was because you're by their side. And I want to make sure that we don't lose any community banks in this country. So I want to start today by giving you some really sound strategies and some not to do's, because at times like this, we can kind of lose our heads and it can be very painful to try to remember what is important here. And after having done this work for 30 years and worked with a lot of banks that were just about shut down, who are now top performers, I can tell you there are certain behaviors that I see that banks do that always get them in trouble, and other behaviors that they do that always have them pull ahead. I believe this is a time of huge opportunity. If you study the history books, you will see that fortunes are made during recessions. And so you're going to have to get your head in a different game, not one of reaction, but one of taking proactive actions to make things happen. Now, if you originally had signed up for a culture webinar, let me assure you that was all ready to go. PowerPoints were ready weeks ago, and we decided to pivot because we had so many requests for this, and so we'll come back and do that later at a more time-appropriate time. But I've been very active with all of our CEO groups and also with their frontline people and their commercial lenders, teaching them how to address the requests to match rates, the requests for money to be taken out as deposits. And so I want to make sure that I get you as much information in the too small time that we have today. So in just a second here, I'm going to turn my video off. I'm going to take you down through a process that I want you thinking about. And I'm hoping that you have your executives all listening, and also that you have your board members, because you're really going to need to unify and make some tough decisions, but they'll also be good decisions for moving ahead. So let's get started here. One of the things I want you to remember that's so very important is that we've been through difficult times before. And when you have difficult times, the challenge is people think this is kind of a one-time thing, but it's not. And it definitely will change. And we will have opportunities as a result. And for my team, my PowerPoint has just locked up. I don't know why it won't give me, here we go. So I want you to remind you of a quote we all heard since we were kids: in the village, in the village, in the village, life repeats itself, life repeats itself, life repeats itself. That's what's going on here. We've been through hard times before. There are actions that banks take at a time like this. Some of them have them pull them ahead. Some have them really get themselves in a lot of trouble, and in a way that even though they may survive a little bit longer, they can't possibly thrive and make it through to be on top of the game later on. And so they eventually fail. And so what I want to do today is I want to talk to you about the research that I've done over all the years. I've been doing this for 30 years now, of what it is that banks that always pull ahead and have this be what pulls them ahead are doing, so that you have the benefit of that information. So in the next hour, we're going to be talking about not just COVID-19 is a big problem right now, but it's the financial implications about this. This is going to get ugly, and let's just start there. But let's also decide that we're going to turn this into an opportunity. So I'm going to give you some right actions that you can take quickly, and quite a few of these actions need to happen over the next few weeks and months in order for you to be in a good place at the end of this thing. I also want to talk about how to position yourself with your current clients so your deposits don't run out the door, how to transform your revenue strategy for what may be at least a temporary new normal. So, you know, in a world where we were calling on people, and now if we can't get face to face with them, how is that going to look? Well, I can assure you we're busy on getting our banks moving through on those actions, because whoever pulls ahead and knows how to do that the best and the fastest is going to take away all the customers from the other ones. So it's important to get busy on that. The important steps that you need to take now to come out stronger. And I want to talk to you about a divide and conquer process. And what I mean by that, just before we go further into this, is one of the things we did in the last recession is we said, okay, some of your lenders need to clean up the bad loans. And we don't want them talking to the folks who are taking care of the current customers. And we don't want those folks talking to the folks who need to be the ones bringing on the new customers. Because if they get confused and you try to take that same person and have them do all three at different responsibilities, I promise you the one that's going to suffer the most is bringing on new customers. And listen, you cannot expense control yourself out of this mess. This is going to be won by those who figure out revenue. And if you have certain people who get depressed hanging on for all the messy things and stop going out and calling on people, because right now a lot of banks will not be paying attention to their best customers, and they will be easy to pick off for those who are bringing them in, and they'll be easy to pick off at some premium pricing if you do the process correctly. I also want to talk to you about avoiding layoffs and sales slumps and dangerously low morale. There's a lot of ugly that can come ahead here in terms of morale. I did a special session for all of our member banks for all of their CSRs and universal bankers today. And I basically said to them, listen, I'm going to throw my body in front of you and between you and the executive team to not have layoffs. But here's what you got to do to make sure that you can prove every single day that the revenue and profit you bring in so far exceeds your salary, because then there's no way they can cut you out. And so it's important that everybody gets their part here. And then what do you do with a strategic plan that makes absolutely zero sense at this point? And for most of them, they make zero sense at this point. So we're going to give you some ideas about that. So let's start off by talking about 3 big threats, and then I'm going to give you 5 solutions. And trust me, I wish I had like 3 days to talk to you because I got so much. So if I'm talking quickly, just know I am moving through a lot of content that I want you to have, because you need to take some of the right actions very quickly. So, there are 3 pretty big threats that I think are pretty real. One of them is the catastrophe mindset. All decisions in life are made either out of fear or out of love. And right now, there's a lot of people in a lot of fear, and a lot of bank executives that are in a lot of fear. And I received a beautiful message from one of my member CEOs on Sunday morning that just absolutely warmed my heart. I'm just trying to find it. My text. It's Keith Knutson. Some of you may know him. He's a past chair of the Graduate School of Banking. And he says, I hope you're taking your own advice and getting some downtime this weekend. And he says, thank you for what you did this week, running into the fire when others are running away from it. Not that I was surprised, just thankful for your guidance and friendship. Please take care and let me know how we can help. Right now, you need to go into the fire. As a leader of an organization, you need to step in. This is not a time to get reactive and only deal with regulators and only keep looking at your budget. This is the time to get massive about the right things and show leadership. And when you do those right things, trust me on this one, there is a world of opportunity. There will be banks throwing their keys at you. They'll be picking them up from pennies on the dollar when you're doing these right things. So you just got to put yourself in the right position very, very, very quickly. So one of the first things you need to share with your teams is you need to say these words. We did not sign up for a recession. Thank you very much. And so that's for those other people. Because right now there's a lot of people who believe that this recession is being done onto us. Now, I am not naive. I am not Pollyannish. There's going to be some bad loans. Going to be a lot of people out of work. Going to be a lot of ugly out there. And that doesn't mean, I've just been reading along with our, I'm getting ready for our CEO Roundtable Council to be reading a book together on Elon Musk. And I've been reading that book, and I'm so inspired by that book, because one of the things about Elon Musk, whether you like him or you don't, you can't argue with his ridiculous success. He is so purposefully driven. It's unbelievable. And when he sees a problem, he steps all into fixing it. If you get about this and go, there are people with problems right now. There are people with cash flow issues, businesses that could go under unless we get massive about helping them. If you step into it that way, you will find ways to increase revenue. You will find ways to make life better. It'll be a really good thing. So customers need to hear really strong messages from you about why you're not going to be matching pricing, and why you are a safe option for them, for their deposits, not just the ones you had before, but the other deposits they're worried about. So instead of just playing defense, this is a great place to have offense. But realize your teams are running scared. During the last recession, we had several banks where I'd hear about some lender who had been at that bank for a long time, and they'd talk to the youngin who had just been hired and say to them, whatever you do, I don't know why they hired you, because we're not calling on people right now. We're not bringing in new business. We're just dealing with the junk. And that's why you have to break it off into different teams, because I promise you, these people mean well, but they are sabotaging your future when they're having those kind of communications going on. So the key right now is to have the distinctions out there that we're not just hanging on deposits. This is a good time to gather deposits. And so when your people believe that, then, people will never outperform the beliefs they have. And so it gives you that chance to really step in on that. I want to talk about threat number 2, and that's about not getting into the correct action right now so you can pull ahead fast during this, and that at the end of this, that you are definitely at the top of the pack, because then the world is your oyster. And so this is the time to take team members who are frozen. Some of them are being told work from home. I've been seeing, I never go to Facebook. I haven't for years. I used to be active in Facebook when it first was a new thing, and now I just have too many things going on. But this weekend I went there just to see what else is going on. And I'm seeing all these messages of people, doing puzzles and doing all kinds of wasted time. And I'm thinking, dear God, the world needs you right now. Step in, go deliver some groceries to older people who can't get them. In the bank, go develop your resources, learn how to go do the selling process, learn how to go shore up any kind of weakness that you have. Peter Drucker is very clear. He was very famous for saying that during difficult times, you ramp up the education and development of your people. That's what pulls you ahead. And so the need for that is very important. So they need to see that work from home doesn't mean that it's vacation time. And I'm going to give you a couple tactics. And by the way, I'll start doing some LinkedIn lives starting tomorrow, where you can ask questions. I'll be answering them live as we go. I plan on doing this until this whole mess is over. And so if you don't send me an invite on LinkedIn, I will not be able to let you see that. And so make sure to get that in, and I'll do everything I can to make sure I can accept as many of those as quickly as possible. So along with that, revenue activities have all but stopped. Team members are scared. Strategic plans are irrelevant. And here's the scary thing. You have a lot of executives who've been patting themselves in the back. Oh, good year. We're doing a great job. Aren't we amazing? And I always say, listen, the world has a way of humbling you whenever you start to lose the humility that at any moment, everything can be pulled away from you, and it can be really brutal. Because it's only, Andy Grove taught us years ago as the CEO of Intel that only the paranoid survive. And there's way too many bankers that are not nearly paranoid enough. Now they're threatened, now they're scared, but now they need to be in action. This is the time for that instead. So threat number 3 is they have no system for managing what will be some kind of a version of some kind of new normal. Now, I'm not saying we'll go completely we'll never have sales meetings face-to-face again. We'll never have meetings face-to-face again. But we're never going back to the way it was. And so we have to get our capabilities up and fast to really make sure that people know what to do. And so, listen, I'm afraid for any bank that has not been averaging at least 5 cross sales and new accounts. If you haven't got that accomplished yet, get your people in mastery of the skills on that. And thank God it's Monday. We have a whole section on that. I asked them this morning, go back and listen to them and listen to them and listen to them and listen to them again. Get in mastery fast. I also shared with them about, listen, we all have read in the paper about the 110-pound mother who their kid is driven over by a couple-ton truck, and so she picks it up and she goes, I don't know how I ever did that. I just did it. That's the valiant kind of efforting that needs to happen at this time from them, from you. It's time to get beyond our limiting beliefs, stop buying into our stories of what can't be done, and step in to go get things done. And so, one of the things that scare me is banks have little to no experience in managing work teams from home and keeping them aligned, knowing how they tie to profit, functioning at a high level, knowing how to pass the baton on projects. It's hard. And I will tell you that we've been about 80 to 85% virtual for the last couple of years. But when we first started, it was ugly and we lost some people and it wasn't fair to them. We just didn't know what we were doing. So I'll be doing a lot of sessions coming up real soon too, showing you how to do that, because the key is it's not just about busy work. It's about everybody's got a tie to profit and they have to know how to pass that baton properly. So there's a whole lot that needs to be figured out there. And then also there's no history regarding how to service and bring on new clients using video tools. And I did promise I'll be doing some sessions coming up real soon, showing you how to do the video things. I'm still waiting to hear back from Zoom, because it's impossible to get a discount once you start. And it may not sound like a big deal right now, but when you start using it for 100 different people or 500 different people and using it, this gets to be a very expensive tool. And once you get in at full price, going back to get the discount is nearly impossible. So if you need to go in, send me a note. I'll show you how to get in temporarily and use a little bit of it, but don't sign up for an account yet until we hear back from them, because I really want you to get that discount. Trust me, I did that thing where I paid for it and then I tried to get in through a group later and have a savings, which would have been a very substantial savings, and it's been a nightmare and I'm still not into that group. And so we're doing everything we can to get you into that group. All right, many don't really know how to take care of their current clients. I talked to the team this morning and I said, listen, if you've been doing 5 outbound calls a day, I'm looking for you to do 50 to 500. Figure it out, because right now they need to be touched, but not howdy doody calls and not goofy. They need to be well thought through, really well done calls, so that you're really finding out what's going on with them and what's important, and how to make sure that they know how to work together on in the sales team model. So many of you are pretty far along on that. Some of you are not so far. So off we go. So I want to start getting into some of the elements of how to make things happen. Before I do that, I want to land one more big point. Your culture is at risk. I got a lovely message last night from somebody on LinkedIn who knew I was going to be doing these LinkedIn Live. And she said, gosh, we came so far and I feel like we were just going to lose everything. And I haven't got a chance to get back to her yet today, but I will before the evening is out to let her know, no, it's going to be okay. We're going to keep pulling ahead. Yes, we got hit between the eyes of the 2x4. That happens in life. But off we go. Let's go make this happen. But I do need to do the seminar that I intended to do here, and that will come. But right now, we got bigger fish to fry to take care of some immediate other issues. So I promise we'll get there. We'll invite you to that. Again, if you feel like, oh gosh, I signed up for this, how'd I go there? Trust me, what we were about to cover would be irrelevant. Plus, I have to customize it all about the work from home model and all these different things. And so I want to make sure that you get that. Okay, I want to talk about 5 transformations to make sure that you come out of this thing smelling like a rose. I promise you, there will be banks that will just take off at the end of this thing, and they will have very little competition, and life will be great. You've got to decide to get there. That is imperative. And so the most important thing you can do is make that decision now, which means you've got to keep yourself out of reaction mode. And I know the regulators are sending you a new doohickey to handle every hour, and that your life is crazy and it feels like you have gasoline poured on top of your head with your hair on fire. I get it, okay? That's why we're going to talk about the divide and conquer model, because they need to be dealt with. We have to respect what's going on there. And you got a business to run that's got to come out the other end of this thing alive and ready to go. And so we got to make sure that that's happening. So let's talk about decision number 1, or transformation number 1, is choosing to not participate in that recession. So what does that mean, and how do you communicate that? One of the things that I really want you to do, and I'm not kidding, I mean, before you walk out of the room, if you're sitting there with the rest of your exec teams, or if you're not, get them all on the line immediately after this call. And I want you to take, even if it's 10 minutes, take the 10 minutes, get out of the craziness for 10 minutes. And I want you to write out exactly how you want things to be better for you at the end of the recession when you come out on top. And I'm serious. Many of you know that when we start working with you, we have you define your utopia of what you think is impossible, but would really make your heart sing 3 years from now. And then we help you build a plan and go, you're done. And many of you have exceeded every one of them in less than 3 years. If you do not clearly define where you want to be, how can you take the right actions in that course? This is not what's in your strategic plan. That's goofy. That doesn't even fit in. You have to have this plan in addition to that. And it doesn't have to be fancy or long. In fact, it better be short, but you better be really clear. Listen, at the end of this, we want to acquire 3 other banks. We want to get them on, at 40% of what would have been the value a month ago. We want to have our culture template so we have no time for the we they craziness and no time for people not knowing how they tie into profit. We're going to get that down because we can't get set back through any of those. Get clear, right? We're going to have everybody live in the values of the organization. We're going to have a net interest margin of a 4.5, even though rates have come down. You got to get really clear about those things. The way to start this is to have a concept called, in mind, called be, do, have. If you want to have a different result, you have to do some things differently, but people are always attempting the doing without addressing the being. So my question for you is, who do you need to be as an executive right now for you to lead this forward? Well, it means that even though you're scared, you got to be in corrective action and moving. You got to have sanity about you. You got to make hard decisions quickly. You have to have compassion in your heart. You have to make hard choices. You need to see them through. You need to have extreme compassion for the people in your community and move that through, and for the members of your team. And you have to be someone who can do something that you never thought you were capable of doing. Those of you who have been through Permission Extraordinary, the stuff you learn in that course, this is when you apply it. It's like you get out of your own way, driven by the fact that life calls us forth to a greater purpose. And this is the time to show greater purpose. If you're in this to make a buck, let me assure you, your bank will not survive. If you're in this to make sure that your people have a fantastic experience making an impact on other people, and that your community comes out of this in a much better place, I promise you, you'll be in a really great place, provided you take some of the other right actions. So that's what I'm saying. Go back to the B. Get purposeful about what this matters. If this is just about making a buck, you will have a very difficult time making that buck. So we want to get everyone in your organization in the spirit of service to the world, taking right, educated, practiced actions. So many of you were on the line with me last week when I had Terry Slattery, arguably, he's known as the legend of IBM, who closed more accounts for IBM before, since he had been there. So, I mean, he's the real it. And we spent a lot of time with your commercial people telling them how to address the, how do we match this rate piece. And at the end of the call, the two of us talked, and what we decided was, listen, the most important thing you can do is perfect practice. And so when I say right action, if somebody asks you, hey, can we match this rate? And they go, I don't know, I'll have to talk to a committee, or I'll have to get back to you. Immediately they're thinking, oh, I got this one. They're going to come back and they're going to have a better rate. And if you don't, you'll lose the deal. So what that means is you got to know how to respond to that thing immediately. And so take your teams, practice with them, make sure they know how to say that, because they have to understand that you're not about to do that. Your teams need to understand that they need to approach the world as if there's a woman like Maria Verlio or something, I can't remember her last name, who wrote a book, Everything is Figure-Outable. And I love that title of a book, and I love that concept of life. So this is not the time to have employees go, well, boss, I don't know how to do this. We got a problem. We don't need anybody bringing problems. We need people bringing solutions. And the answer when you ask somebody to do something who is an engaged employee, who cares and is competent, if you ask them, hey, I need you to go take that hill, if they have no idea which hill and how to do it, the only answer they should give you is, I'll have to do some research. It'll take me a little bit longer. I'll be up there by tonight. In other words, you don't have to give me every darn piece of the plan. I am going to figure it out, and I am going to show you I can get a result. And that is the spirit of the team members. So even though I throw my body down in front between an exec team and the people to not have them laid off, I will also tell you, if you have any nonsense going on, if anybody misbehaving and not living the values of your organization, or if you have anybody who it isn't doing the behaviors that drive the results, they can't stay during times like this. They just can't stay. There is no place for those people because it's not fair to your good people. And so that takes care of not having to do any layoffs, because anybody who's not tied to profit and not making that happen will be taken care of in that way. So, so things are going to get tough, and you've made some commitments to your board, and guess what? They're still expecting you to hit those commitments. So those of you who have been through the permission of extraordinary somewhat, you've heard me talk repeatedly about the event times the response equals the outcome, Resnick's formula. And so you can't impact the event. Coronavirus, it's happening with or without your input. It doesn't quite care. And the outcome that you promised your shareholders is they keep getting their dividends, and they keep having whatever. So between those two, you got to figure out a response. And that's what a strategy is. And that's when I look at most strategic plans, there's a lot of, like, God bless them, they mean well, but a lot of accounting firms out there doing strategic planning. And so they give you the numbers and all that's great, but there's not one strategy in the entire strategic plan and no availability about how to do it. Well, how's that working for you? That just can't continue, because the whole point of a strategy is, with limited resources, how will you get this outrageously great outcome? That is what a strategy is. And so you're going to need to do a lot of figuring it out and being resourceful, which means, yes, I know you'll have stressful days, but you got to keep a smile on your face. You got to keep it fun. You got to keep in movement, and you got to really bring some ingenuity to what you're doing. Excuses and results never live in the same sentence or the same person. So right now your board doesn't want to hear your excuses. They don't care. They just care that you figured this out. And listen, when you're that kind of CEO that figures it out, then you don't have to go for board approval for everything, because they basically go, listen, it's your job to run this bank. It's our job to set the goals. As long as you keep hitting the goals, we're out of your hair. I worry about the bank CEOs where they have to go to the board for every little decision along the way, because what they've proven is the board's not trusting them yet to make the right decisions. And I get that, because, we've all had certain employees where you know that they're going to deliver on something and do the right outcomes. And there are some of those who you kind of know it might not turn out so well. And according to situational leadership that was taught back in the 90s, that was a big deal. When somebody's not performing, you better become a micromanager, because the situation demands it. And so right now, as CEOs, you need to let your board know, here are leading indicators that we're measuring. Here's how we're driving those leading indicators. They have to see incredible transparency about what you're doing, or they will lose faith in you and have you come to them for every decision, and that's not what you want. I want to talk to you about your budgeting, because I bet there's going to be a whole lot of pencil sharpening going on. And a lot of banks will completely take themselves out of business through their budgeting process. There are a lot of, I like to call them cheap financial officers who don't understand that their job is revenue. And so they pride themselves about all the different expenses they can cut. And sadly, one of the things they don't understand is that they should look at each expense item as if it is an investment. So the biggest mistake, according to research, that all businesses make during a recession is they cut out the very things that are going to take them to the top of the pack at the end. So one of them is marketing. Now, I'm a big believer that there's a lot of fat in the marketing, because most marketing in banking does not prove a return on investment at all. Whenever we start working with a bank as a new client, one of the first things we do is we go in and cut 80% of their marketing budget, because there's no return. There's usually a negative return on investment from those dollars. So let's get that money deployed in more resourceful ways. But the second thing, and the most important thing, is getting your capabilities of your people to go over the moon. Because right now there is no room for fat. There is no room for people who don't know how to have that 85% close rate at a much higher premium price and get the entire relationship. It is time to bring competency to the position. It's not time just to be showing up. So I want to talk about transformation number 2, which is about getting massive about your current customers. And I mean massive. I want you and your entire team to obsess about them. So, it's interesting, because I haven't even got a call from my bank, and I'm thinking I'm definitely one of their top 1% customers, and I haven't even gotten a call. I haven't gotten an email. I've gotten a whole bunch of emails from vendors and they say, hey, everything okay? How can I help? But they're not, I mean, there's no meaningful action supporting it. And so it's like somebody told them they should do something, and that's the best they can do. And we got to be so much better than that. So when I talk about getting massive about your current customers, I want you to obsess about taking away their pains. And I'm going to give you a couple things to do with them right away. Because listen, your top 100 customer, you've heard me talk about this for years, that between 50 to 140% of your profits come from your top 100 customers. Arguably, that number is going to go up during a recession because they are your safest accounts. They are your most profitable accounts. They're the reason that you stay in business. And so if you lose even one of them, you got a big problem. And in fact, the good news is that a lot of other banks are going to be so distracted, not paying attention to their customers. Everybody else is going to be calling on them. But if they don't know how to call them correctly, they're not going to win the business over. You got to be able to do it correctly and add the kind of value that we talk about with level 4 USPs and using the right sales process. So how do we do this? First of all, divide and conquer. I would suggest immediately you be thinking about, and I would use, for those of you who are using zero risk emotional intelligence assessments, this should be easy for you to do, to figure out who goes into which bucket, because you want to align it with the research that shows who's going to do the best job in each of the areas. So there is a group that needs to be there, take care of everything, make sure the trains are running, keep them on the tracks, handle all the chaos, keep it out of everybody else's hair. You need to have a team that's just obsessing about your current customers and just all over them like white on rice right now. And not just in a I'm bugging you and wasting your time way, but knowing what to do. And I'll continue to do the calls that I've been doing to show them more strategies of how to do it. And then the last group is the seriously bring on new customers. Right now, it's interesting. I did a video last week, and I had several different business owners that I know who listened to it. And so they're sending me all kinds of questions about what they should do with their banking. And I'm thinking, why isn't their bank calling them and working out these deals with them? But I'm telling you right now, there are people who are vulnerable who would move from their bank. They just need to see that you're up to it, up to something, and to be able to assure that everything is going great. So that's a really important piece. When talking to your top 100, I would suggest that you schedule calls with your current top 100 and do some future tense listening. Now, what the heck does that mean? I'm really serious about this. With those top 100 most profitable customers, set up some meetings with different exec team members and maybe some of your credit banking professionals if you have some of those, or some of your other top people. And the key is you're calling to listen, but you're putting them in a different state. You want a state change for them. Right now, they're in fear, they're in reaction, just like too many bank executives are. They need to understand that they have to have their dream and their vision of where they're going and get about it, so that they can, so that you know how to help them. But when you're doing that, please don't be salesy. Please don't be moving them through things. You've got to instead just, you got to ask them questions like, so at the end of this thing, there will be great opportunities for those who pull ahead. Tell me where you want your business to be then. And then just keep asking them more questions about that, because then they'll tell you how they want you to help without you having to suggest anything. So it's all about the listening and this kind of a call. And I promise you, more business will come to you as a result of this, but it can't be creepy. It can't be salesy. It's just truly got to be where you're showing that with your heart that you care. I would also recommend that you massively up the volume of your value-added communications. Those of you who were on my first CEO call last week from our member clients, and I showed you the formulas that you use for those communications. Just because you sent one out doesn't mean we're done yet, okay? This is going to go on for a while, and they're going to need to hear what's going on. And if you aren't communicating, they're making up stories, and you don't want stories to get out in the community about what they believe to be true. The third transformation is to focus on effective development of profit and safety-rich revenue. And I'm going to put a star on this one. This one's really important. Revenue is the answer for getting through this. Let me repeat that. Revenue is the answer for getting through this. And I know right now it's like, well, how do we do this? But I'm telling you, I've been talking to bankers and they're telling me about all the new deposits they're getting, how some loans are moving over to them. Their people are doing the right thing. Money is still moving. And if your people are all paralyzed and waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, you're going to miss a lot of the opportunities. And some of these customers you lose, they will never come back. And so it's really important to get in the right actions very quickly. So it's important to execute on your top 100 customer plan to make sure that you're keeping all their business and that you're focusing on keeping them in business. So again, this goes back to obsessing about them. So you got to be a problem solver right alongside of them to help them figure out how they're going to deal with some of the problems that are about to hit. It's a problem when you have lost your revenue and you got payroll to make. That's a bad one. Not too many businesses can make too many weeks of that. These are real live concerns that they have. They will also have opportunities to buy the inventory of the competitors on 10 cents on the dollar. There's going to be a lot going down. And if you're not in front of them, if you're not working alongside of them, you're going to miss some huge opportunities. And then meticulous execution of your quote unquote marketing process. And this marketing is that connectivity between marketing and sales that helps create that reputational equity with that top 100 prospects. I'm going to be spending some more time later with you, not in this call, but showing you what to do now that we can't use mail the way that we've been using it in the past as a part of that marketing process. There's new things, there's new doohickeys, we'll figure it out. Again, everything is figure outable. So even though something used to work, if you can't do it anymore, now we got to do something different. That said, many of you who have the top 100 Excel doc that we give you to manage them down through the process, keep moving them through that Excel spreadsheet because the most important leading indicator KPI that you have is the number of top 100 prospects closed. They are your safest next best customers. They are your most profitable next best customers. And they're the ones who will sneeze, and whatever they sneeze, everybody else catches. So they'll start spreading the news about you as well. A good messaging for your team is the best way to help the poor is not to become one of them. So if you've had slop in your sales system, it must go now. And I can assure you there are a couple of numbers you need to look at, and it will tell you whether you have slop. If in your top 100 tracker, you don't have at least an 85% close rate at premium pricing, even from those who love their current bank where you're actually closing them, you got slop. Because the key here is if you're good at what you do, you can systematically pull away customers who love their current bank and get your premium pricing from them as well. But that takes some skill sets. And so, but if you have slop in the system and people aren't working it properly, they're not going to get that done. The fourth transformation I want to talk about today is aligning everyone to profit on a daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. And I'm not kidding about that. The need to have everybody pay for themselves is important. And so if you're a team member, I'll probably do some media over the next couple of weeks too and start teaching people, listen, if you think you're going to get cut, here's the thing. You've got to get massive about proving that you are a good return on investment. And if you haven't been a good return investment in the past, forgive yourselves everything, but don't let another week go on. Now is the time to move. Now, the problem is, when Business Week did their survey of 6,000 employees and they asked them, do you perform in the top 10%? 90% said they perform in the top 10%. So they think they're tying to profit, but they don't know how they tie to profit. So when we move banks from job descriptions to job performance progress plans, and we actually work with them and the right critical drivers, that's how they get that consistent profitability, that consistent growth, is because now people actually understand how to do the things that really matter, and they can get about that as a result. So the key is to not just have them know what they need to get done and what their contribution is, but they also need to know how. And so the key is they need to walk home at night and feel like they have an S on their chest before they go home, knowing that they were a huge contributor that day. And a lot of folks in banks just have not been invested in enough yet. And as a result of it, the challenge is that they're still in transactional banking. And listen, this event that we're going through right now is going to change. Any bank that's still up to transactional banking, any bank that's not getting that 5-6 cross sales, any bank that's not getting that high cross sales at extreme premium pricing, any bank that can't get that net interest margin, If they don't figure it out fast, they will cease to exist. They will lose their independence, and they will have somebody else's name on their door pretty quickly. And so the need to get their competencies up quickly is immensely important. So know that as you're doing that the research up to now has been that 69% of the workforce is disengaged at work, according to Gallup. 17% are actively disengaged. They're actually working harder against you than for you. And the key here is with engagement, you're not going to keep hearing, hey, we need more people to do this job. You're going to hear instead, bring it on. Let's go get this done. I don't know how to do it. Let's make it happen. That's an engaged person who steps in and says, I can make that happen. And here's the thing that they don't understand. If they're disengaged at this job and they move, let me assure you, they will be disengaged at the next job and the one after that and the one after that. It is sometimes who they are. Now, it doesn't mean some people can't be saved. It doesn't mean you don't have an ethical obligation to show them how to save themselves. But if you've taken them to the water and they're not drinking, we're going to miss you, because in a time like this, everybody's got to pull their weight and we have no time for the nonsense. Something I'll be covering a lot more sessions on over the next few weeks is how to have the appropriate daily, weekly, monthly effective reporting right now, because a lot of people will be sent home and a lot of those we'll never see again the same way that we did in the past. And if you don't have the right effective reporting going on, that's going to be a problem. By the way, there is some good information about this in TGIMU as well, but I will create some new content for this as well, because if you can't see what they're doing, what they're planning on doing for the next day, what they're planning on doing for the next week, what they're planning on doing for the next month, what they actually got done, and and if you don't have transparency to what didn't get done, then this whole remote workplace is not going to work for you. And in fact, a real workplace doesn't work too well that either. So it's time to shift to much more effective visibility of what's going on. So it's not about your team members just working hard and coming in early. It is about, do they do the right thing? So instead of going out and maybe you got some people and they're calling on all kinds of prospects, but they're not closing top 100, top 1,000 prospects, or the ones they're bringing in are higher risk. And so you're not getting paid for premium pricing, you're getting paid for risk, which that usually doesn't turn out so well, especially during times like this. And so it's really important that people understand it is not the volume that we're looking for. We have to hit all three: growth, profitability, and safety. Every decision we make, all three of those, we're going after those pieces. That's how we create a sustainable franchise. When I look at average culture scores, I want you to know that, boy, do I want you up in this area real quickly on your culture score. We've been doing culture scores for about 15 years now, and so we can see how banks progress, and you can see the key here is you want a better culture every single year, because culture is a series of systems. If it's going up every single year, it means you're working the right cultural systems. And when I say culture, I'm not just talking about the happy bus. I'm talking about a happy bus where everybody knows how they tie to profit, and they're bringing the value in based upon being tied to profit. So I want to share with you a quick story because sometimes people can't get their head wrapped around this. We have a bank, maybe they're on the line today, love them. They're just the most wonderful people. When we first started working, the profit wasn't there so great. It was kind of a bit of a struggle, and the culture was kind of a mess. So we worked on the culture first, and we got the culture just swimming. And then we were saying, okay, now it's time to do the part where we tie them to profit. And boy, did we have a battle with the executive team at that point. And they said, oh no, Roxanne, we can't do that. We just got this culture fixed. We can't risk it. And I said, oh no, this is a both and. It's not an either or. And it took them a couple of years to believe that. But then once they did, they just shot up and their performance just went through the moon. And so if you're one of those banks where you think you either have a happy place or one where you hold people accountable, let me assure you the two can come together, but you got to do it right and have stage appropriate accountability. Otherwise people will lose their mind and start running for the door. The fifth thing I want to talk about today is the culture of higher selves. This one's an important one too. We have no time for nonsense. If somebody's whining and complaining about what they don't want as opposed to bringing a solution, they are sucking the energy out of the people who need it. Everybody must be bringing solutions. If you're saying something negative to someone, who can't do something about it, and you're not saying the words, and here's what I recommend behind it, then zip it up, because there's no space for you. If you're playing those little games where it's like, oh yeah, well, I know what Todd is like. I've worked for him. And you call him on it and say, that's a passive aggressive move. You go, oh no, I didn't mean anything by it. Of course they did. And so, we have no time for passive aggressive behavior, for people telling us what can't be done. There's an old saying, there's nothing more embarrassing than telling your boss it can't be done while you watch them do it in 5 minutes. Well, this is the time where we don't want to hear from people what can't be done. It just can be, I have no idea how to do that right now. Leave me alone for a second. I'll Google the snot out of this thing. I will figure it out. I will make something happen. But we have no time for the nonsense. And let me assure you, if you have any of this, do not be held hostage by anybody. During times like this, these people cost everybody else their pay raises, their salary increases, their bonuses. There may be a hiring freeze and whatever, all because of the people who are working harder against you than for you, or those who just quite aren't stepping up to the plate. And so be brave in handling that, because if you alternatively do a layoff, the research shows that if you do one layoff, there's almost always a second and a third that follows behind it, because as soon as you do one layoff, your good people start to think, well, am I next? Well, when you actually just get rid of somebody for not living the values or not living to the standards of performance that you're expecting, that's a different game. People go, thank goodness that they're handling those things, because that's a drag for the rest of us, and we end up doing their work. So it really clears that space. So this is the time for servant leadership. And this is the time for transparencies. And so what I mean by transparency is your board needs to know what's going on. They need better information. I see some of the packages that go to boards and I go, oh boy, information is not communication. So if they get 70 pages of gunk and nothing really gets brought to them in terms of an understanding that leading indicators create lagging indicators. So if you're not showing them, this is how we're moving our cross sales numbers up, and here's how much we've moved them over the last couple of months. So we're doing that with our mystery shops. We're doing that with our cross sales. We're doing that with our culture score. We're doing that with our appointments that we're setting with top 100 prospects. This is our new close rate. This is how many of our top 100 we've closed this year. Those are your leading indicators. Remember the days when people used to count the number of new bank accounts? That's like a ridiculous number today, because 87% of your customers lose money for you. Why are we even talking about bringing in more of those? Because that's the kind of stuff that will take a good bank down. It doesn't mean we're not going to take care of people. It just means all activity, all marketing activity, all sales activity needs to be focused in on top 100 activities, because that gives us permission to take care of other people in our community. So at this point, I wanted to share with you, and by the way, do make sure your questions get into the Zoom. So if you don't know how to do that, go to the bottom of your screen. There's a little, as you hover over it, you'll see a button that says chat. And so you can write your questions in there, and I'll make sure to cover those at the end as well. I also want to talk to you about, we were going to do the conference culture in May. We have canceled that. There is a different need, but what we will be doing instead is a virtual conference. We'll do it 2 days in a row, 2 mornings in a row, where we're going to go deeply into these topics and help you figure out how to get clear about a franchise system. And I really believe that most banks they're not buttoned down on a good franchise system, so they're all over the place. And so how to get more of that done, and how to get people rowing in the right direction. It's critical right now that people learn how to get that done. So we'll be offering the Bank Survival Strategies Summit, and it will be a virtual summit, which means it'd be nice if you can be on Zoom with a video camera yourself, because that way we're going to be talking and it's going to be live, and we're going to do a lot of action. It will be April 14th through 15th. From 9 to noon. Member clients, this is complimentary in your program. And so it's April 14th through 15th, 9 a.m. till noon. And we're going to roll up sleeves a lot more at that time to make sure that you have the information that you need. So here's who I recommend that you attend. Have your board members attend, your exec team attend, your CEO attend, come together. You'll be making decisions there together about your next actions. And if like two people come and others aren't there, then it's hard to even go back and explain to them. And so if you can't get fast alignment, you can't go into quick action. And this is the time that really requires some very fast action as well. So what we'll be covering for you is we will show you how to manage and make sure your current customers aren't running away during this time. And this isn't just for the next couple of weeks. This is for the next couple of years probably. And so getting the right system in place for that will be key. We're going to talk about how to continue to create revenue when rates are at zero. So for many of you who have believed in net interest compression in the past, and you've watched what the Fed did with rates, you're probably thinking, how is this going to work out? Well, it's going to work out how you make it work out. And I'm a firm believer that you just have to figure out net interest margin now more than ever. Hey, a couple of weeks ago, was it last week when the market was crashing, and I looked at the research on community banks were down 40% from their high average, and the rest of the market was down 25% at that time. And the banks with the lowest net interest margin were just clobbered. Listen, you've got to figure out premium pricing. You just cannot wait on this. And I know there's banks in the line that picked up 40, 50, 60 basis points in a year. We have a couple banks over the years that picked up 100 their first year, 100 their second year. I know I sound goofy even saying that, but listen, you've got to bring a whole different game to get that done. We're going to also be talking about how you make your right strategic investments to make sure that you're investing in the right things to keep moving you ahead. And then also, how do you handle some of these increasing burdens from your regulators, because they're kind of interesting at this point, and we have to keep on top of that. So Lisa asked the question, and go ahead, put your other questions in here as well. Lisa says, I'm very interested in how you score your culture. Thank you for answering that question. We have a culture survey that has been authenticated through a university, which is probably might be the only one available in banking that can do that. And it's certainly probably the only one that's just designed just for community banks. But not only are we looking at things, well, first of all, here's what we don't have. I have a speaker that hopefully you'll get to see at Super Conference in September, if that continues. But he's the guy who takes in all the MDs and went into the messes in Katrina and Haiti and all those other, whenever there's a disaster, he runs all the MDs who move in and donate their time. And he says that he thinks that Gallup has done more to destroy the ethics in the workplace of this country than anything else, because they have crazy questions like, I have a friend at work and I have the things I need. And he said, listen, when we go into Haiti or Katrina, we don't have any of the things that we need. And if you don't have a friend, it's because you're being a jerk. And so that's not our role. What should be in there are meaningful questions about all kinds of things that have to do with how the communications are happening in the organization. Are you dealing with people who are non-performers? Do you have authentic communication happening throughout the organization? On and on. I can't begin to go into the kind of questions. But the key is, we know the correlation between that culture score and banks that have a 2 ROA and a 5 net interest margin. And listen, the banks that have the highest performance, they also have the highest culture score. That is no accident. We have a lot of agricultural banks on the line today. They've just been through their own version of hell of an agricultural, terrible economy. And many of them are still sitting at an ROA up near 2 or over 2 and an ROA over 5. Don't tell them it can't be done, because they've done it and they didn't start there. So it's about the things that drive safety in your organization. And I want you to really get serious about the safety. It is, in the last recession, we lost a lot of good banks because they had 1 or 2 executives on their team who lacked the necessary humility to say, I don't have all the answers, I need some help. And it was interesting because I remember before the last recession, there was a gentleman, and I just, bless his heart, I just love him. He's a great human being, but he did not bring the backbone that was necessary to the rest of his executive team, because he knew they needed help. But he had a couple guys going, oh no, we can do this, it'll all be fine. Well, the next time I talked to them, they had lost more than 60% of their capital. They were a small fraction of the size that they had been. They've now built up a little bit, and he just asked to talk to me again, but now he's got this new guy who just started a month ago who says, oh, I can do this. And I said to my team, dear God, just watch this happen again. It is a time for great humility. It is a time to realize that nobody has all the answers. We're in this together to figure this out. It is a time where we must radically improve competencies in a powerful way. When I had a gentleman speak a couple of years ago at Super Conference, many of you might remember him, where I see the names on the line, who had been the CEO at Southwest Airlines when they turned everything around. He's the one that created the new strategies, and he's the one who created the new culture. And what's fascinating is they went 30 years in a row without having a down quarter and with a great culture. No down, and they were the, according to Money Magazine, they were the best increase in capital value of any stock over those 30 years. Now, what's fascinating is, how do you take somebody in the airline industry when everybody else is filing for bankruptcy every 5 to 7 years, and instead you do this? And it was what they built. Now, I don't know how they're managing it today. I know how they managed it then. That's how our banks must be run. I am committed on my mind that we don't lose any more community banks. Listen, we went from 18,000 banks to 5,000. Stephen Hovde said acquire be acquired. If we keep the current trend line going, we'll be down to 1 in 25 years. That can't happen. When a community bank leaves a community, the brain drain happens, the small businesses begin to shrivel up, those small communities are done for. And when small communities get lost, there goes America. So guys, this is important. This is a mission. Please get massive. Please get over your fear. Please step into the burning building and take the right actions quickly. And I look forward to seeing you April 14th and 15th. I'm doing all I can to keep up with all the communications coming at me. In the meantime, if I'm not responding fast enough, know that I am not playing with puzzles, and I am not bored, and I am in massive action. And I really feel a purpose right now to make sure that banks are saved, and whatever I can do to help you, I'm all in. My team is all in. Ask for the help. We'll make that happen. So thanks everyone for investing this time today. We look forward to your questions, and send me an invite right now to LinkedIn Live so we can join tomorrow, and you can see my LinkedIn Live, and we're going to keep doing those as we keep going. And thank you as well for the messages coming to the panelists. We appreciate that. It has been great fun to be with you today, and looking forward to your live questions tomorrow. So we just keep this party going. I am going to stay massive until this thing is over. I'm going to ask you to stay massive until this thing is over as well. Thanks everyone. Have a lovely day, and stay safe. Wash your hands. Keep a smile on your face, guys. Talk to you soon.